to see if a few more people join before we get started. But I hope everyone's having a great day so far. Hi, Jean. It's good to see you. That's okay. You can wave.
Okay. I'm trying to get unmuted.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. I'm glad I got on.
Me too.
Yes. So, and it has been a good day. So I went to a wellness event today, a little networking, and now I'm here with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, in the interest of time, I want to respect everyone's time. So it's 12:02. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just like yesterday, Carmela, one of my team members, is on with us, and she's going to be just helping me to monitor the chat, and she'll be letting anyone new that joins into the room. She's going to be monitoring the chat, so feel free to use the chat as much as you would like. There's going to be a lot of reflection questions that we go over today that I'll have you put in the chat again, just like yesterday. So welcome to day two. Today's topic is possibility. So if you're here for day two, you are already someone who doesn't just consume the content, but you implement it. So today's expectations are practical, they're hands-on, and it's going to be calendar based. But before we get started, I always start off all of my webinars or coaching calls with wins. So does anyone have a win from yesterday if you were on the call? A win or a takeaway from yesterday that you can share with the group in the chat, or if you have a win in general that you want to share, let's go ahead and start it off with wins. So I'm going to put mine in the chat, but my win from yesterday was that I added to my calendar a time block for later this week to journal more about a couple things that came up for me in my bottom three domains. Excuse me. What does everyone else have? What's a win that you have? There, I got mine in the chat. All right, come on. There's got to be some wins. I would say another win was after the workshop yesterday, I had on my calendar to go for a walk to get some of my steps in. And I walked outside of my office and it was raining. And I could have easily turned around and went back in my office, but instead I walked down to my car and I grabbed my umbrella and went for a walk anyways. And probably because I had my umbrella, it actually stopped raining after a few minutes. So I actually had a really good walk. Oh, let's see. Emmeline said, I went to the gym today and she's working on being consistent. That's awesome. Congratulations. Marlene, I think I saw you went to the gym this morning. Jean says, I connected today with a woman to start planning a client appreciation event. That is awesome. Very cool. Anything else? Okay, there's two more that just came in. I think my win was that I realized that I still revolve my schedule around others. I need to stop and focus on my priorities and to be respectful of my own time. Wow. So I think you may have already peeked at my notes for today because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Um, and then another one, I've downloaded an app to organize my finances and plan my budget for April. That's amazing. And that's just in time because tomorrow is April 1st already. Gosh. Okay. Let's continue on. So let's do a day one recap for, oh, there you go. Jean wants to know what app that was for the finances. LU, if you can respond to that. All right, let's move on. I want to go through just a quick day one recap for those of you that weren't here yesterday. So, yesterday we did something that most high performers rarely slow down long enough to do. So, we actually took a step back and we zoomed out. We didn't just look at our work, we didn't just look at our productivity, we didn't just look at what feels urgent. We evaluated our entire life across all those different domains that we went through in our workbook. And in just a few minutes, we were able to identify your top three and your bottom three domains. And that matters because clarity creates ownership. So you were able to see what's thriving, you saw what's being neglected, you've noticed that the areas that you naturally prioritize and the ones where you procrastinate. And then we took that and we went even deeper. So instead of trying to fix everything like we tend to do, we actually visualized something very powerful. And I know I heard from a couple of you that you were like, I'm going to go back and do that visualization a couple times to like really get it to sink in. And the good news is we're going to have another one today. So hopefully that will help. But we visualized what it would feel like to amplify what's already working and intentionally reduce what's draining us. So we didn't do that to overhaul our life. We didn't do it to become someone else, but we did it to expand our alignment. And then also on the opposite end of that, to shrink our friction. So we were able to begin to see that our life is not random, that it's designable. And today we're going to shift from that awareness to the actual architecture, or what I like to call the possibility. So yesterday was insight, today is implementation. So we're going to take the top and the bottom domains and we're going to put them against something that's very real. It's called our calendar. Because our vision without structure fades, but vision with structure transforms. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's focus, we're going to look at a normal day in your life. So we're not putting in things here like holidays or visiting extended family, traveling, special birthday celebrations. We're not focusing on any of that. We're really focusing on just what a normal Tuesday looks like in a normal week of your life. So again, we're not designing a dream vacation like yesterday. Casey and I agreed on Kauai. We're not planning our Kauai vacation. We're not building a dream life in Bali. I went to Vegas to see New Kids on the Block for my birthday. We're not planning any of that. We're not looking at a holiday season when maybe the kids are on break and we are figuring out what to do with them during that break. What we're designing is a normal Tuesday, which is a realistic week with your real responsibilities included. Because let's be honest, if it doesn't work on a normal Tuesday, it's not going to work long term. So if you take a look at page 14 in your workbook, so if you have your workbook with you, great. If not, I'm going to read through all the reflection questions and give you the page numbers so you can always go back and download it and add those in. But if you do have a pen and paper, that would be amazing so that you can jot down some of these reflections as we go through them. So on page 14 in your workbook, it has 2 reflection questions that I want to start off with today. So the first one is, write out one thing that is always part of a normal Tuesday that cannot be ignored. Thank you, Carmela. Carmela just put the workbook in the chat if you need it as well. So what's one thing that is always part of a normal Tuesday that cannot be ignored? And go ahead and throw that in the chat for me so we can get some ideas of what happens on a normal Tuesday with everyone that's currently on the call. For me, 99% of the time on Tuesday, I have a date night. Okay, we've got gym workout. That's awesome. What else does everyone have? An 11 a.m. goal call every Tuesday. I love it. Anybody have anything else they want to add? All right, then the second reflection question is, why is it important to focus on a realistic day rather than a dream day? I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but what do you think when looking at this, why that's important? If someone wants to jot that down in the chat, that would be great as well. I'd love to hear your responses. Anyone have a guess as to why it's important to focus on a realistic day versus a dream day? Yeah, exactly, because it's reality. Emlyn says, I love creating a realistic day. I can build habits that fit my actual life, reduces frustration, and makes steady progress instead of setting expectations that are impossible to maintain. So if you think about it, if you're designing a normal Tuesday versus, let's just say, a vacation may only be that one Tuesday of the entire year. But if you're building your ideal Tuesday every single week, you're continuing to build on those habits every single week. And then your vacation or anything that's going on that is not on your normal Tuesday is just something a little bit different out of your normal priorities. Does anyone else want to add to that? Okay, so let's talk about what an ideal day looks like. On page 15 in your workbook, I kind of have it identified out. So what is an ideal day? An ideal day is aligned, it is intentional, it's energy aware, and it's sustainable. An ideal day is not perfect. It is not packed. It is not unrealistic. What happens when we have an unrealistic schedule for the day? Your entire day falls apart. So that is not your ideal day. An ideal day is not performance-based. So the ideal day is actually going to give us enough white space that we need to get done the important things. It's never going to be perfect. And a day that's packed, if you say an ideal day that's packed, is never going to be an ideal day because that's not sustainable. So it's very unrealistic. And we can't gauge if our day is an ideal day based on performance because that's just setting us up for failure and for letdown. Anything else to add to that? But what I love talking about when I'm looking at defining my ideal day is that one of the things I think we first need to identify are our, what I call energy blocks. And I think it goes hand in hand. So energy blocks are like more of a mindset or a wellness or a personal development concept that's used to describe things that interfere with your natural flow of motivation, your clarity, your emotional or your physical energy. So a very simple definition could be that energy blocks are internal or external factors that disrupt your ability to feel energized, focused, or aligned. So most people, when they're scheduling on their calendar, how do you typically schedule? Normally it's just by your availability, right? Something comes up and you go and you look at your calendar and you see where you can fit it in. But the difference with high performers is that they schedule those items and the things that need to go on their calendar by their energy. Now, a lot of studies that have been done will say that most high performers have like higher cognition, do their best work, do their best deep work, get it all done by doing it first thing in the morning. And that may be the case for you, that may not be the case. But what's important to point out is for you to identify when you have your highest and your lowest energy blocks so that you know when to block on your calendar the specific task that goes along with the energy that it's needed. Does that make sense to everyone? So let's just say we are a high performer and in the morning you have higher cognition and you can focus more on strategic work, deep work, writing, creative thinking. You're going to want to do all of that and book all of those items on your calendar in the morning because you know that's when you're going to function better. And then high performers sometimes say they use the afternoons for like meetings, for administration work, for items that are like just tasks, lower things that take lower focus. And then they use the evenings for like relationships, restoration, and reflection. But keep in mind, this isn't the same for everyone, and it could be very different for you. But remember that yesterday was all about awareness. So if you're aware, you can create that possibility, and you can do that by identifying what works best for you. So I'm just going to give you like a real life example of my structure and kind of how I set up my calendar and my ideal day based on my energy blocks. So for me, I set my day up by having quiet time to myself in the morning before anyone else gets up. So that also means that I get up pretty early. I get up before everyone else, which means I also go to bed a little bit earlier than everyone else. But I take that morning quiet time to just have time to myself. So I journal, I might read some portion of a personal development book or a business book. And then just the way that my schedule is with my kids right now is either I'm home a couple days during the week to get the boys on the bus, or I drive my daughter to school. So depending on which day that is, I might put my workout clothes on in the morning, and then as soon as I get to the office after dropping my daughter off, I go for a run. And then I come back to my office, I change, kind of get ready for my day, and then start my day. If I'm at home, I may go for a walk, or I might actually get a workout in as soon as as soon as the boys get on the bus. But I tend to do my deep work in the mornings. I find that I can get into a flow state quicker. I have less interruptions. There's not a lot of people that are vying for my time. So that's usually the time of day, like even before my assistants and my admin get in, I can usually feel comfortable in putting do not disturb on my phone and getting about an hour in of just deep work that I need to work on. And then typically I have team meetings that start at like 10 or 10:30, but I try not to do any meetings prior to that. Then in the afternoon is usually when I schedule my meetings. I follow up with my admin, see if there's anything that's needed. I usually check in with my husband. All those items that are lower focused. If I'm returning client phone calls or I have a list of people I need to call, if I also have to run a errand or run to an appointment, I make those calls while I'm driving. And then For me, my evenings are very protected. So we try to do family dinners as many nights of the week as possible. But we also have a pretty set schedule. So Tuesdays are date nights. Wednesdays, my kids go to youth group and kids club at church, and I volunteer with the youth group. And then my husband and I have hot tub book club Friday, where we spend some time together going through a particular book that we're reading together. So evenings for us are very protected for relationships, for restoration, time for reflection. This weekend, we played baseball with my son in the backyard. Then he pulled out Twister, and I played Twister, which I have not played in quite a few years, and found out I need to do some more yoga and stretching. And then somebody grabbed the Uno cards and we played Uno. So I have been very intentional to create my ideal day and my ideal week so that my nights and my weekends are protected. Most of my nights and weekends do not revolve around real estate. And oftentimes people are very shocked by that. So let me explain. Like, this didn't happen by accident. It happened by a decision that I made and the way that I designed the life that I wanted in 2014 when I decided to quit my previous job that I had and decided that I was going into real estate. I had decided to go into real estate because my previous job had me traveling 3 or 4 nights a week. And at the time, my two oldest kids were 2 and 3. And so basically, my husband was raising my kids. And the whole point of me quitting that job was to find something that I could do that wouldn't take me away from home and then would also allow me to work the times that, I wanted to work. So I was very, very strategic on that when I started that in 2014. And I've continued that over the past, holy cow, almost 12 years. So that's a little bit about how I design my ideal day that also leads into my ideal week, and kind of how my energy blocks that I've identified for myself work and how that goes into my calendar and what that looks like. So on page 15 in your workbook, there is a reflection question down towards the bottom that says, look at your current schedule. And just, if you don't have it in front of you, that's fine. But just think about your current schedule or, a recent week that comes to mind. When do you feel most focused and creative? And when do you typically feel drained or reactive? And if you can come up with a couple of those examples, let's go ahead and share them in the chat. So I think the one that came up for me is like, I feel drained and reactive on the days where I'm not following my calendar and I'm allowing others to dictate my time. And then also I'm being reactive to situations that arise versus being proactive. Like, not all of us on the call are in real estate, but I always joke that, you know, a lot of agents will say, "Oh, I work 24/7." I'm like, "Well, you know what? Like, there's not something that could happen in real estate at 8 p.m. at night that could be really resolved prior to 9 a.m. the next morning. Like, if your lenders and your title companies and everyone else are not working, there's not really a reason for you to be working." So it's all about the mindset around that as well, that I hear from a lot of agents as to, how they're allowing others to dictate their time and their calendars. Does anyone have anything they want to share on that? Yes, I feel drained when random errands pop up that aren't on my schedule. So let's just talk about that a little bit because I think that's a really good point. So, and you can answer this in the chat as I'm asking the questions to you. When, let me go back. When random errands pop up that aren't on your schedule, are they usually an emergency that needs to be taken care of right away, or is it something that can be taken care of at a later time? I'm waiting for that response. Oh, here we go. Now that you mention it, it can be taken care of at a later time. So I'm glad you said that because that's what I thought you were going to say. Something that I learned probably about a year ago that was really life-changing for me is that, we constantly have items popping into our head of things that we need to do. And I think I originally heard it from Tony Robbins that if you keep it in your head, you're dead, meaning anything that pops in your mind, like that's all you're thinking about until you get it out or you forget it. So typically what I do is I have like the notepad, the Google Keep on my phone, and I just keep like a running to-do list. And then as I am time blocking on my calendar, I'll often time block, depending on how much is on my to-do list, I'll time block maybe like an hour a week that just says personal, maybe like a half hour a week for kids if there's a lot going on for the kids or whatever. And so when I am working on my calendar for the upcoming week, I'll go and I'll look at that to-do list. And let's say on Tuesday at 11 o'clock, I have 30 minutes set aside for, and I say in quote, kids. So anything that involves the kids. And then I go and I look at my to-do list and I have that I need to make annual physical appointments. I need to register one of my kids for something at school. I need to pay for some activity for one of the kids. You get my idea. So I'll take all of those to-do items from my to-do list and I'll put them onto my calendar under the personal time. So it comes off my to-do list. It's not on there anymore. And then on Tuesday at 11:30, I look at my calendar and I say, oh, it's time to work on tasks for the kids. I click on that. I use a digital calendar on Google, and it literally just has everything listed below that I have to work on. And then I use that 30 minutes to just go through as many of those items that I can. And that has really given me a lot of clarity. And going back to what you said, you said you feel drained when all of those random errands come up. I think for me personally, that helps because you're getting it out of your head, you're getting it on a to-do list. And then instead of being overwhelmed because of that to-do list, you're actually putting a time on your calendar when you're going to take care of those. So I'm not sure if that's helpful or not, but that's kind of how I deal with those items. And it helps me to not feel drained because of those items. Yeah, and then you said, I don't want them to pile up, so I tend to rush to finish them. But I think for me, when I know that I have time on my calendar that I'm going to handle them, it relieves that pressure. So just an example, maybe that'll help for you. Let's see what else. I feel focused and creative early in the morning. I feel I have more energy and can stay on task. I feel drained when I'm uncertain of the day and I'm waiting on others. Yes. Jean says, I do need to do more time blocking to feel more focused. I 100% agree with that. I feel drained when my to-do list isn't structured or organized well. It overwhelms me. I feel exhausted when I shift my focus multiple times per day. When I jump from one thing to another, it slows me down greatly. So there's actually a statistic about multitasking that states every time we're working on something and we get interrupted and then we go back to that task, it takes 7 minutes to get focused again on that original task. So I am huge on time blocking and focusing on my calendar. And then also within that time blocking, making sure that I'm time blocking activities that go well together. So example, like if I'm doing something on my calendar during my energy block, I know I can do my deep work in the morning. So let's say I'm writing a coaching course. I'm not going to write a coaching course and then I'm going to go into a bunch of like admin tasks. And then like after that, I'm going to go back into my deep work. You're actually better off by just spending a little bit longer time on that deep work and getting into that flow versus switching back and forth. Yeah, isn't that crazy? About 7 minutes to refocus. So like I don't even want to think about how much time we probably waste on just going back and forth. And I think I've noticed it more in the past couple years that like I'll get interrupted and then I'll be like, gosh, I don't even remember what I was just talking about or like what I was just doing. And then it's like just completely gone. So I can't even refocus because it's just gone. All right, does anyone, I think that's everything in the chat. So let's go into the ideal day template. So it's in your workbook on page 16. So we're going to start to work on our ideal day. So this can be super quick. You can answer these questions in the chat. So let's go through them one by one. So like what time are you currently waking up? Let's just say weekday, because I always like to sleep in a little bit on the weekends. But what time do you typically wake up during the week? All right, we've got a 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Evelyn, 3 p.m. because you're on a different time zone. 6 a.m., 6 a.m., 6:30. LU, 10 a.m. Love it. All right. What is the first intentional act of the day that you do when you wake up? Coffee for me as well. Sunday morning, my alarm went off for church. And when I woke up, I was like, oh my gosh, the power is off. And I immediately just sat up in bed and said, how are we going to make coffee this morning? That's what I was worried about. I wasn't worried about not having power to get ready for church. I was worried about drinking my coffee. Sit quietly for 5 minutes and then journal. I need to have at least a sip of coffee before I start my journaling. Do nothing for a couple of minutes. Light exercise or stretching. Make my bed. That's a good one. Actually, there's lots of studies about making your bed first thing in the morning because you get a quick win of getting something done. Luckily, because I get up earlier, my husband gets up after me, so he gets to make the bed. And then my dog jumps on and messes it all up. Carmela, she resets her alarm for another 10 minutes and then she drinks coffee. So does your alarm go off? You start the coffee and then you go back to sleep until the coffee's ready? I love it. Okay, so if you work out, where does your workout fit in? When do you typically do your workouts? All right, Marlene says, oh, the chat's going fast. I love it. Depending on the day, 6:30 a.m. or 7 a.m. Whenever I can, but not consistent. For me, I try to do my cardio first thing in the morning. Um, I also do weightlifting 3 times a week. And it's not super ideal for me because I do that in the afternoon when it's like blazing hot. But there's about an hour in between when the boys get off the bus. So I do that workout while I'm waiting for them to get off the bus. And I don't have to pay for a gym membership because I can do it all in my garage. And I'm not like wasting that weird hour in between the boys getting off the bus. Another one said before going to work, um, around the neighborhood, walking and running. But when do you actually do that is the question. Someone said I do the treadmill in the mornings for 30 minutes. So it seems like for the most part, everybody does it in the mornings. Jean, is yours typically in the mornings or literally just whenever you can fit it in? Typically mornings. So that seems to be a consensus. And then what about where does your deep work fit in? So going back to looking at those energy blocks, this is going to help us to identify where those where those energy blocks fit into our calendar to help us get awareness as we're starting to fit all of that into our calendar. So do you feel when you're doing deep work, like when you get into that flow state and you're just like on fire, completely focused on what you're doing and you feel like you can take over the world, when is that usually? Is that morning, afternoon, or evening? I know some people are like, that's I do my best work at 11 p.m. I'm like, that's not me. I am asleep at 11 p.m. Oh, Jean says evenings. So, wow, Elio. Wow, that makes sense for you. But I went to my first Tony Robbins event. It was a group event at a house, and then we watched it virtually. But Tony Robbins goes to like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was done by like 10 p.m. every night. I'm like, I cannot do deep work in the evenings. So we have a lot of evenings. For me, definitely it's mornings. On weekdays, I think evenings and weekends in the morning. Hey, that's okay, as long as you are identifying it. And then what about like connection with friends, family? I think that's probably similar to what Ria had said. Like for me, that would be during the week, it would be evenings or maybe some lunches here and there during the week. And then, I mean, weekend is pretty much open depending on what's happening. And then when does your day actually end? Do you have a consistent time when you're normally going to bed? I do for me, and it's kind of sad, but I'm usually in bed by 9 p.m. every night. Okay, thanks. Marlene's 9:30, so I don't feel so bad. I'm usually in bed, but I'm not usually asleep. I would say I'm asleep by like 10, but I also get up at 5:30. So, anyone else, do you consistently have a time that you go to bed? So then take just a few minutes and think about the top three domains and the bottom three domains that we talked about yesterday, and where do those fit in? I'm sure you can probably visualize your calendar and you know offhand where your top three fit in. But what is probably the struggle for you right now is that you're not fitting in your bottom three because you're procrastinating or not wanting to do them. So something to think about is where can you fit in those items that were on your bottom three domain from yesterday? Oh, somebody said midnight. Too late. I want to get more sleep, and I think it's actually affecting my weight. Not consistent, or 11 or 12. I personally think that some people are just born a certain way because I remember when I was little, I would literally just like get up and put myself to sleep. Like when I was in elementary school, I'd be like, it's 8 o'clock, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And I feel like I've always been that way my entire life, where my husband has always been more of a night owl. My 14-year-old is also a night owl, like, and my 13-year-old. So I'm usually, even now, I'm going to bed before them. But think about that for a minute, something to reflect on. Jot down a note in your workbook of where you can fit in your bottom three domains. And then along the same line as that, the reflection question on page 16, if you adjust one thing in your day tonight, what would it be and how would it make you feel? That's a great question. So by the end of the day today, what's one thing that you could adjust? What would it be and how would it make you feel? I think if I was Jean, she made the comment earlier that her workouts aren't consistent. So maybe a simple solution could be one thing you could adjust today is to identify when you're going to work out tomorrow. And then how would that make you feel already knowing that you have that figured out? Does anyone else have an example? Or any shares that anyone has so far? All right, let's keep going. So we have another visualization coming up shortly, similar to yesterday's. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the Intentional Life 6-week coaching course that's going to be starting next Thursday, April 9th. So yesterday we talked about awareness. Today we're building on possibility. And we didn't create a fantasy life. We're creating a normal Tuesday. We're mapping out an ideal week that works with our real responsibilities. And I can feel that something is shifting and happening. We're realizing that our current calendar is not permanent. We can move workouts. We can protect date nights. We can create deep work blocks. We can reduce decision fatigue. That is huge for me. We can shift our energy rhythms by using those energy blocks. And we've been able to see that those small structural changes create real momentum. So here's the truth. Most people stop here. They feel inspired. They tweak one thing. They feel great. They've got their workout on their calendar. And then life pulls back. But the intentional life exists so that that doesn't happen. So starting next week, over the next 6 weeks, we're not just going to sketch out your ideal day or week or life. We're going to actually build it. We're going to audit our time in real time. We're going to delete, automate, delegate. We're going to coach through resistance. We're going to build your calendar live and integrate all those habits so that they last. Because this isn't about motivation, it's about integration and making this a part of your everyday life. So as I mentioned yesterday, enrollment opened. It is an investment of $12.97 with a fast action bonus that's through April 2nd, which is Thursday at 11 p.m. So through April 2nd at 11 p.m., you're going to get $300 off the program, which brings it down to a total investment of $997. And during that time, you're also going to get a private 45-minute one-on-one session with me. And then after Thursday, that one-on-one does go away. And the cart will be closing on Monday, April 6th at midnight. So if building your ideal day felt empowering, which I feel like it did for all of us, Imagine living it every single week. So I don't want you guys to let this fade. But before we get into the visualization and the rest of the content for today, I want to introduce all of you to Marlene, who is joining us today. She has been working with me for, I said last week, 5 years, and she's like, yeah, it's actually 7 years. So time flies when you're having fun. But she started out as an hourly employee working part-time. And then after years of convincing, she got her real estate license in August of 2024. And she recently transitioned into a showing assistant for all of my agents on the 100% agent side of Palm Circle Realty and jumps in for Casey and I whenever we need help. And she's here to just tell you a little bit today about how she has grown over the last 7 years and how this framework has worked in her life. So I think Carmela's going to spotlight her. Yep, there she is. So everyone, welcome Marlene.
Hi. Well, yes, as Kelly has said, it's been just about 7 years that I have worked with her. Just before COVID. I've had three jobs my entire life. This being the third, at almost 60 years old. Um, but I was blessed that I get personal coaching one-on-one every day when I work. I get to watch Kelly and Casey daily live their lives. And I can tell you, I was very all over the place for a long time. Most of my jobs required me to be very multitasking, which, as we've determined, is not necessarily the greatest thing. Kind of takes a little oomph out of your step when you have to regroup. But I've learned over the years to better focus, set goals. I have a lot of dreams, a lot of things I wanted to do, but I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I lacked direction, discipline, but I had a lot of things I wanted to do, so I wasn't quite sure. And I, most of the time, couldn't see my own potential. But Kelly could see it. And the first couple of years, she asked me numerous times to go get my license, and I very graciously said thank you, but no. But then after a while, again, just watching her, and it's not that she's super structured, but she has a way of living her life with intention. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to live my life with intention. Because I felt like I was missing out on so much. My husband and I are, well, we're getting close to that retirement and living our life. And so in order to do that, I needed to get focused and really set some goals for us. And it's been great. My health being my number one goal. Kelly can attest to this. I have transformed myself through discipline of scheduling, a calendar, which I can sometimes do really good, sometimes not. I still have a hard time, again, prioritizing myself. But I've learned how to. I've learned to step out of my comfort zone. I led a kind of sheltered life. And so she helped me understand, that my personal growth needed to become one of my priorities, that I was important because I have a very bad habit of putting myself on the back burner. And she reminded me that's not a healthy way to live. So she's mentored me over the years and continues to mentor me. I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful of all she's invested in me. I'm grateful that I finally decided to, yes, go get my license. I absolutely love showing properties. There are some things that I am really good at, and customer service, after working at Disney and a school for many, many years, is my heart. I love working with people. And so she's helped me to expand on that and to to see the possibilities, to see what I can do. And so she just continues to pour into my life, and I'm very grateful. She encourages me every day. Casey encourages me every day. Um, they see things in me that I sometimes don't, and I'm so grateful um, for that. And I just want to say thank you.
You're so sweet. I'm gonna give you a little heart. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing. That was definitely from the heart, and I appreciate all those kind words. Thank you. You're getting lots of hearts. But I love to see, just working with Marlene every day, I love to see how the work that I do and she does has impacted her and her life, and just getting to see her growth firsthand over the years has just been so amazing to watch. So if any of you want to experience what she has experienced, here's how you can get it. Starting next Thursday, April 9th, over 6 weeks, we're not just going to sketch out your ideal life. We're going to build it. We're going to audit your life in real time by doing an actual audit over at least a week. We're going to delete and automate and delegate the things that we need to. I'm going to coach you through that resistance while we build your calendar live and we integrate habits so that they actually last. Because it's not about motivation, like I said before, it's about integration. If you have any questions on any of this, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to talk about it with you. But let's go ahead and jump back into the ideal week. So life isn't lived in one day. It's great that we sit down and we figure out what our ideal day looks like, but we need to compound on that and keep working on what our ideal week actually looks like. Our weeks are lived in rhythms. Some things are weekly: date nights, team meetings, long workouts, creative blocks, church, financial reviews. Jean mentioned earlier she does a financial review or a team goal every Tuesday morning. Weekly rhythms, and thinking about them, instead of asking, when can I fit this in, we actually ask, where does this live in my week? So, an example, years ago, Jason and I, we would do a date night here and there, but we really wanted to commit as our lives were getting a little bit, we don't like to use the word busy, as our lives were getting fuller, with the kids getting older and activities and things like that. But we were like, we want to be intentional about having a weekly date night. So at the time, we needed a babysitter. So we found a babysitter. We're like, listen, every Tuesday at 5:30, you're coming over, and we already have the money set aside to pay you, and we are going to have a date night every Tuesday. At the time, sometimes we would go to Target and walk around because we're like, what are we going to do? We've already paid the babysitter. Now we're much more intentional with our date nights. We have specific, I joke by saying like rules, like things that we are allowed to talk about, things we aren't allowed to talk about on date nights, just so that we can focus more on our relationship. Because what we did notice a few years ago is we would go on date night and we would just talk about the kids or talk about the schedules the whole time. And that kind of defeated the purpose of us spending that quality time together. So it was a reoccurring event, and the results were better communication, better parenting, better energy. And we just made that small structural decision, and it just compounded so much. So in thinking of building off of your ideal day and going into your ideal week, what are some of those rhythms that might not happen every single day, but as you see the rhythm of your life, you know that they're going to happen every single week? Does that make sense? Any questions on that? So then, as we're looking at your ideal week template, we have some questions that we can kind of go through. So like, where does your relationship time live? Where does your personal growth live? Where does recovery live? what does your business development look like? Where do you not work? I think that's probably one of the most important that we need to identify. And we really just want to make one weekly shift. Remember, we're not like ripping up our calendar and starting from scratch. We're making small incremental changes that are going to, over time, consistently benefit us. And I'm not really sure if this example correlates well with this or not, but I want to give it because I had this realization this week and I think it's so impactful. But 3 years ago, we moved from Claremont to Sorrento. And my oldest daughter was still going to school in Claremont. We moved in like September. So we had from September to May that we had promised her she could stay in the school that she was in. So we had September to May that we were driving an hour to school and an hour back home every single day. And it was a lot. I'm not going to lie. It was something that was probably one of the hardest time periods that I can remember in the past couple years because I had to adjust my schedule. We had to make sure that we were able to pick her up and drop her off, but it was a promise that we made to her. And one thing that we decided to do during this time is I'm like, we're spending 2 hours in the car together every single day. And I don't want to waste that time. So, we would have some conversation, but I'm like, what am I going to fill this in with? So we decided to start listening to audiobooks together. So her and I do it together. And then about shortly after, my husband started doing it with her as well. So they listened to separate books, and then her and I listened to separate books. Well, I went through this past weekend because I was curious. Since September of 2023, her and I have listened to 71 audiobooks. And that number just blew me away. And I was like looking through my Goodreads where I have them all on there and just looking at them and I'm like, oh, I remember that one. Like we had such a good conversation about that. And oh, like this spurred conversation about that. And I was just thinking back over the weekend how impactful that was because that was one small, tiny change that we decided to do versus just spending the time in the car, listening to the radio, chatting about our day, maybe having some good conversation here or there. So I just wanted to throw that out there as literally something as small as that could make such a huge deal. And it's not something that we do every day. I don't take her to school every day now. Usually it's 2 or 3 days a week. So that's just more of a rhythm that we've gotten into. And like we actually get excited about it now. Like if we're on spring break or something and we don't listen to our book for like a week and we're like, oh, where are we at in our book? What do we have to go on to? So just something that I wanted to throw out there as we're talking about rhythms and our weekly templates. So now we're going to get into our visualization for today. So just like yesterday, I want you guys to go ahead and get comfortable. We're going to be using this visualization to build your ideal day and week. So go ahead and get comfortable. Again, if you want to turn your cameras off, that's perfectly fine. But get comfortable, have your feet grounded on the floor. Go ahead and relax your hands. And if it feels good for you to gently close your eyes, go ahead and do that. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to do a visualization. It's whatever feels best for you. So let's go ahead and start by taking a deep breath in and then go ahead and release it with a slow breath out. And then one more time, inhale. And then as you exhale, let your body soften. And now bring your awareness back to what you experienced yesterday. The version of your life where things felt more aligned, where they felt more spacious, more intentional. You weren't rushing, you weren't reacting. You were choosing to let that version of you come out and come back into focus. So now today we're going to do something a little different. We're not just going to imagine it, we're going to step into it. So picture yourself waking up on a normal day. Again, not a vacation day, not a perfect, unrealistic day. Today's Tuesday. Picture yourself waking up this morning. But picture it being lived with intention. Notice what time you're waking up. There's no rushing. There's no immediate overwhelm. Just a sense of calm and clarity. What's the very first thing that you do? Maybe you take a few quiet moments. Maybe it's prayer or journaling or just being still. You're starting your day on purpose. Next, begin to move through your morning. What does your routine look like? Are you fitting in movement? Are you spending time with your kids? Are you connecting with your spouse? If you look at it, there's a rhythm to it. You're not cramming everything in. You're moving with flow. Now shift into your workday. Notice how you're spending your time. When is your highest energy, your clearest thinking? Is it being used for what matters most? You're not scattered. You're not constantly switching tasks. You're focused. You're making decisions ahead of time. You're not drained by decision fatigue throughout the day. And now you see your afternoon. Maybe this is where meetings happen, conversations, collaboration, lighter tasks. You're working with your energy, not against it. There's space to breathe. Now move into your evening. Work has ended. You're present. You're with your family. You're with your people. Maybe it's dinner together or a walk. Maybe it's just something simple but meaningful. You're not half working and half living. You're here and you're present. Now zoom out. This isn't just one day. This is your week. Notice how your days have a rhythm, but not every day looks the same. Some days include workouts. Some include rest. Some days are heavier in work. Others are lighter, more focused on family or personal time. Maybe there's a standing date night, time set aside for your faith, moments that are protected, not optional. Now ask yourself, what makes this life feel different? It's not that everything changed overnight. It's that you made intentional decisions, small ones. You decided when things happen. You decided what matters. You decided what no longer gets your time. Now, go ahead and gently bring your awareness to where you are today, your current life. And instead of feeling overwhelmed by the gap, just look for one shift, one change you could make to your day today, and one change that you could make to your week. That's it. See yourself implementing it. Maybe it's scheduling that workout or putting date night on the calendar. Maybe it's protecting your mornings, small but intentional. Now notice how that feels. It probably feels lighter and more possible because it isn't about changing everything at once. It's about building step by step. Go ahead and take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, anchor into this. You are not waiting for a different life. You are building it one decision at a time. When you're ready, gently come back into the room, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, go ahead and open your eyes. If you have your cameras on, off, you can go ahead and turn them on. And then in your workbook on page 17, we're going to take what you saw in that visualization and we're going to get practical. So some examples could be for your faith, putting quiet time on your calendar twice this week, scheduling church, scheduling a walk with your spouse, putting date night on the calendar, blocking 30 minutes for a workout. For business, protecting one deep work block. Say clearly, you do not need a life overhaul. You need one structural decision. Incremental change compounds over time. So let's go into the reflections on page 17. So you can go ahead and journal for a few minutes. The first one is, what is one energy-aware habit you want to protect every day? Number 2 is, how will you ensure that your calendar supports your priorities and doesn't run you? And number 3, write down one actionable change you will commit for your ideal week or ideal day or week. And if you would like to be held accountable with that, go ahead and drop them in the chat. For me, I put time blocking for deep work in the mornings when I have my highest energy. Does anyone have anything that they want to share on that? And we'll just wrap up in a few minutes. I know we're over on time a little bit today. We've had so much activity in the chat. I didn't want to slow it down. Does anyone want to comment? What's one energy aware habit you want to protect every day? Mine is quiet time with coffee in the mornings. And it's a bonus when I'm at the beach and I get to sit on my balcony while I'm doing it. All right, while you guys are wrapping up on those, I want to give you a little sneak peek for day 3, where we started out yesterday with awareness. Today, we moved into possibility. Tomorrow is all about building that alignment. So day 3 is going to be insight, intention, integration. So not just time management, we're going to be looking at identity and purpose, alignment with your goals, and a sustainable life design. So we're not optimizing robots. We are actually architecting our lives. So you now have awareness, you have a template, you have a framework, and you have a starting shift. Most people have never done this work, and you did, and I want you guys to be proud of yourself. So just a reminder, we don't want this to just stay as a workshop. We want this to become your new operating system. So again, if you have any questions about the 6-week coaching program that is starting next week, please reach out. I would love to talk to you about it. We will see you tomorrow live at 12 Eastern. And again, all of the replays come out in the afternoon. So your replay will come out for this call later this afternoon. And we will see you tomorrow at noon. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.